This is the MMO Sanctuary video preview for Star Wars The Old Republic, a title that is coming out very soon, actually due to release on December 20th this year. And we had the opportunity to take a look at the game earlier on during the closed beta process. And we had a few good and a few not so good things to say about the game. This title was developed by BioWare and has some very interesting features. Of course, is in the Star Wars universe, which has many, many fans in both single player and even the previous MMO Star Wars Galaxies. Before some serious problems there, the game did pretty well. One of the major parts of this new system is the addition of extended dialogue. There is a good deal of combat in the game, and there are 4 different classes on each of the 2 faction sides available. 2 of them feature a Jedi or Force power component, while 2 of them are more military. You have bounty hunters on the Sith side, smugglers on the Republic side, and a couple of Jedi varieties on either side, both the Sith and light Jedis as well. Now, when it comes to the dialogue part, there are some good points and bad. If you enjoy dialogue, if you enjoy the role-playing aspect of the games, and if you've played any BioWare titles before, such as Mass Effect 2, you may be very familiar with the system. It allows you a few different choices on how you respond to the NPCs throughout the story. However, the effects of these are actually rather small. You don't have any effect on the outcome of the story for the most part. What you do have is choices that will award you certain light or dark side points according to your reactions. So, unlike a single-player story where what you say or do may actually change the outcome of the story or the way certain things turn out, it's not necessarily the case in Star Wars The Old Republic. Mostly what you're trying to do here is play your character, earn those light or dark side points, which will also come into play later on with certain abilities and even equipment. There are some equipment, weapons and armor that are light side and dark side specific. Some of them may require a certain number of points for you to be able to equip or use them, so that is something to keep in mind when earning those points earlier on. If you're going to be a real hard ass, so to speak, you can try and get those dark points, or if you're going to go the ever-wise Jedi style, you're going to want to shoot for light points and go for the more pleasant and diplomatic approaches. But everyone does get their opportunities. One of the problems that we do see with the dialogue is the duration. It takes a long time to get through some of these, and there ends up being a lot of talking and not as much action. Some of the dialogues can run several minutes long, and while that may be a nice little break between combat, it can be a little annoying. The combat itself is pretty decent. The animations do seem to need some work, however. They feel a little fake and not that realistic. The characters move in an awkward type manner. The strafing is very awkward, where the lower body will turn and jog while the upper body remains facing the same direction. So your hips are running right while your body remains forward. And the same thing is true of even the jogging or running animation. The characters seem very stiff and upright, and unlike a normal person, when they run, you'll often see people leaning over or a little more bent, even when jogging, but that did not cross over very well. Taking a look at even the dark side of the game with the bounty hunters, the combat can often feel very slow. The weapons don't fire as quickly as they could, and the offhand weapons have a very long recharge rate. You do unlock more abilities further on, different weapons, but overall it feels very slow and not very strategic. We are also not seeing much of the cover mechanic that was spoken a lot about. Trying to go into cover does not seem possible, and maybe that was something that was disabled or not spoken of very clearly, but we had a difficult time working with that, whereas it was something that was mentioned a great deal when they initially talked about the game earlier on and mentioned the mechanics. Cover, strategy, all of those things were brought into play, but in fact that does not seem to be the case. More often, there are areas that you just go into and slowly pluck away at enemies. Some of the animations are interesting. Your character's self-healing ability can often look entertaining. They're unique. Each class does seem to have their own type of rest ability. The Jedis may meditate, whereas the bounty hunter, you can see, lets out some steam and recalculates his weaponry and shielding. The equipment and armor is pretty typical from what you may have seen in other Star Wars, especially the Old Republic games. It feels very similar to that. A lot of the outfits and styling are the same. You should see Mandalorian armor pop up, most certainly, as bounty hunter equipment. That was very era specific, so it should be something obtainable. However, one of the other problems that we had in terms of customization is not only are there only 4 classes, though these do branch off into 2 subclasses each, ultimately leaving you with 8 classes for each side. Really, you have 2 military and 2 Jedi or Force classes, and then each of them will split off or specialize, I suppose you could say. But problem is that not only are there only 4 classes, but there are only actually 5 racial choices throughout the entire game. And that can be a little frustrating for people who are very familiar with the Star Wars universe and the wide variety of races. Mon Calamari, not there. Rhodians, not an option. Wookiees, don't think about it. Twi'lek? Yes, you can play a Twi'lek. The Zabrak, the Darth Maul race, yes, those are available. Humans, of course. Everyone knows humans. Every game has humans. There are also 2 other races that I am less familiar with. One of them is a human-looking race that has whitish skin, and the other is a cyborg race, which I was actually not aware was part of much lore in Star Wars, but apparently it is. So there is a cyborg race. One thing all of these have in common, with the exception of the Twi'leks and their head tentacles, I suppose you may call them. I'm not sure of the actual, it's probably a lobe, but they're all basically humans with different skins. And that can be very frustrating for people who want to actually look different or alien or monstrous. You're not going to get that in this title. And that's kind of a letdown. Some people go in and they love Wookiees. They want to be a Wookiee. They love that race. What happened to even the unknown race that Yoda belongs to? We saw that they had been destroyed prior to the time of the Galactic Empire at some point there. However, even in the earliest of the existing Star Wars timeline, as far as the movies are concerned, you see another of Yoda's race. You see Yaddle on the Jedi Council, but that's not an option here either. Basically, they just did not include any of the Star Wars canon races except for a very small handful that pretty much seemed like reskinned humans. And that's kind of a sad story there. So if you're expecting that cool alien feel, you're not really going to get it. More or less what we ended up with when we tested out the game and had a look at it was your typical MMO with the Star Wars universe. this could have easily been The Lord of the Rings Online, or more stripped down EverQuest, or a better graphic World of Warcraft with less choices to it. Really, at the end of the day, you've got limited class selection, limited race selection, a lot of dialogue, not a lot of features, even in terms of PvP, and then additional features, things like housing, things like, just all of the rest of it. Where is it? It's not there. So we're a little concerned with that, but we will be looking further into the game as time goes on.